Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're talking about something that is going to make a lot of Supra fans a little emotional. Toyota has just announced that the 5th generation GR Supra, the one we've been arguing about since 2019, is coming to an end, and they're sending it off with one final hurrah, the 2026 GR Supra MKV Final Edition. So let's dive into what makes this last dance special, and whether Toyota is giving this legendary nameplate the send-off it deserves. Now, before we get into all the details, I want to be real with you. The 5th Gen Supra has always been controversial. Let's not pretend otherwise. Since it rolled out in 2019, people have been calling it a rebadged BMW because, well, it shares a lot with the Z4, the platform, the engine, even the interior controls. But here's the thing, regardless of how you feel about its German DNA, this car has been a blast to drive. And Toyota wants to make sure this final version is the best one yet. So what exactly is the final edition? Well, it's not just a fancy sticker package, though there are some pretty cool visual upgrades we'll get to. Toyota actually went in and made some serious performance tweaks to make this the sharpest, most track-focused Supra they've ever sold in the US. We're talking suspension changes, bigger brakes, chassis stiffening, all the good stuff that enthusiasts have been begging for. Let's start with what's under the hood. The final edition keeps the same turbocharged 3.0-liter inline-six that we've come to know and love. That means you're getting 382 horsepower and 368 pound-feet of torque. Now, I know what you're thinking. Wait, didn't Japan get a more powerful version? Yeah, they did. Over there, the A90 final edition gets bumped up to 434 horses and 421 pound-feet. But unfortunately, those upgrades didn't make the trip across the Pacific. We're sticking with the standard output. Is that disappointing a little bit? Yeah, but here's the silver lining. Even with the current power numbers, this thing still feels way quicker than the specs suggest. In testing, the manual transmission version hits 60 miles per hour in just 3.9 seconds. That's seriously quick. And honestly, the power has never been the Supra's weak point. And speaking of that, manual transmission, yes, you can absolutely get the final edition with a 6-speed stick. The clutch is heavy, requires real effort, but the throws are short and mechanical. And there's automated rev matching on downshifts that makes you feel like a driving hero, even when you may not. If you prefer the automatic, the 8-speed ZF transmission is still available and it's brilliant. It always seems to know exactly which gear you need, whether you're attacking a tight corner or cruising on the highway. Let's talk about where Toyota really focused their attention with this final edition. And that's the handling. They gave this car more negative camber on all 4 wheels, which basically means the tires lean inward slightly to give you better cornering grip. All of these changes work together to make the car feel more planted, more responsive, and more confidence-inspiring when you're really pushing it. And you know what? You're actually going to need that confidence because Toyota also upgraded the brakes. Multiple reviewers who've driven this thing at Sonoma Raceway said, the braking performance is noticeably improved over the standard model, which is exactly what you want in a car like this. Toyota also tweaked the software that controls the electronically controlled rear differential. The goal here was to improve traction coming out of corners and reduce understeer, that frustrating feeling when the front end doesn't want to turn in as sharply as you'd like. The final edition adds some exclusive visual elements that really set it apart. There's a carbon fiber ducktail spoiler on the back, carbon fiber mirror caps, and revised front wheel arch flaps and tire spats. Inside, you'll find seats trimmed in Alcantara with red contrast stitching and a big GR logo embroidered on the headrests. It's subtle enough to not be over the top, but distinctive enough that you know you're sitting in something special. This thing is inspired by the GR Supra GT for race car, and it includes distinctive side graphics, red mirror caps instead of carbon, and a matte finished rear spoiler. The Supra badge on the back is also matte black, and here's where it gets interesting. If you go for the GT4 pack, you unlock two exclusive matte paint colors: Burnout, which is a matte white, and Undercover, which is a matte black. These are only available with the GT4 package, and they look absolutely sick in person. Talk about the interior overall because, and I'm just going to say it, it hasn't aged particularly well. When the Supra launched in 2019, the interior felt modern enough, but now, several years later, it's starting to show its age. You've still got that 8.8-inch central display running what is basically a lightly reskinned version of BMW's iDrive system. If you're familiar with BMWs, you'll feel right at home. If you're not, it's still pretty easy to figure out. You get navigation, wireless Apple CarPlay, though sadly no Android Auto. There's a standard 10-speaker sound system on the base model, and a 12-speaker JBL setup on the Premium and Final Edition. But here's the thing. You're not buying a Supra for cutting-edge infotainment or the most luxurious interior. You're buying it to drive, to feel that turbocharged inline-six pulling you down a winding road, to hear the exhaust note bouncing off canyon walls, to experience that pure, unfiltered connection between you and the machine. And in that regard, the Supra absolutely delivers. The ergonomics are spot on. Everything is exactly where you want it to be. And the driving position is perfect. You sit low. The wheel feels just right in your hands, and you have that command dial within easy reach for adjusting infotainment settings without taking your eyes off the road. Now, let's address the elephant in the room. Price. The 2026 GR Supra starts at $58,695 for the base 3.0 model. Is it worth it? That really depends on what you're after. If you want a collectible, something that's going to hold its value and maybe even appreciate down the line, the Final Edition is probably a smart buy. These limited-run send-off models tend to do well in the collector market. But if you're just looking for a really fun sports car to drive every day, the base 3.0 model is honestly fantastic and saves you a significant chunk of change. Now, how does this Final Edition compare to past Supras? Well, that's a loaded question because the Supra nameplate carries a lot of history. The 4th generation Supra, the legendary MKIV from the 90s with the 2JZ engine. That car became an absolute icon. It was tunable, it was fast, it starred in the Fast and Furious movies, and it achieved cult status. This 5th generation car was always going to be judged against that legacy, and honestly, it was probably an impossible standard to meet. The MKV Supra is a very different animal. It's more refined, more comfortable, more daily drivable than the old MKIV ever was. It's quicker in a straight line, right out of the box. But it doesn't have that same raw, mechanical feel, partly because of all the modern electronic aids and partly because, well, it's essentially a BMW underneath. Some people love it for being a more civilized, easier to live with sports car. Others will never forgive it for not being a pure Toyota creation. Something interesting though, when you drive the Final Edition back-to-back with Toyota's other GR products, the GR86 and the GR Corolla, you really notice the difference in character. Those other cars feel more distinctly Toyota, with sharper steering, more playful handling dynamics, and a sense of being purpose-built from the ground up for driving joy. The Supra, for all its performance capability, feels a bit more isolated, a bit more grown-up. It's faster, sure, but some reviewers have argued it as not quite as engaging or rewarding as Toyota's homegrown GR offerings. And at nearly 70 grand for the Final Edition, that's a valid criticism. But you know what? I think there's room in the world for both approaches. The GR86 and GR Corolla are brilliant for what they are. Lightweight, nimble, affordable fun. The Supra is a grand tourer that happens to be really quick. It's more comfortable on long drives. It's got more low-end torque. And it's got that straight 6-engine note that just hits different. They serve different purposes. And that's okay. So what's next for the Supra? Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Production of the 5th generation officially ends in spring of 2026. Toyota hasn't said whether there will be a 6th generation model, given how the market is shifting toward electrification, and how sports car sales have been struggling industry-wide. It's entirely possible this could be the last hurrah for the Supra nameplate, at least for a while. If Toyota does decide to bring it back, Fans are hoping it'll be more like the GR86 or GR Corolla, a car that's built by Toyota from the ground up rather than another partnership vehicle. Look, the 2026 GR Supra MKV Final Edition is a fitting send-off for this generation. Toyota clearly put some effort into making it the best driving version they've produced, with meaningful suspension and brake upgrades that genuinely improve the driving experience. The visual enhancements are tasteful and purposeful, and at the end of the day, it's still a really fun, really quick sports car with one of the best engines in the business, and a manual transmission option, which is becoming increasingly rare. Is it perfect? No. The interior feels dated, the price is steep, and some people will never get over the BMW connection. But it's also a car that can hit 60 in under 4 seconds, carve up a canyon road with confidence, and then cruise home in comfort without beating you up. That's a pretty compelling package. If you're in the market for a sports car and you've been eyeing the Supra, now's the time to act. These final editions are limited to just 1,300 units in North America, and they're going to go fast. Whether this is goodbye or just see you later for the Supra nameplate, at least Toyota is giving us one last chance to grab a piece of automotive history. So what do you guys think? Are you going to miss the MKV Supra? Or were you never really sold on it in the first place? And if Toyota does bring back a 6th generation, what would you want to see? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.